on this a bit, Governor. We saw some numbers on the screen while you were talking, but you are in the state of New York and in the city of New York at a crisis point, a breaking point. And we have heard the frustration from New York City Mayor Eric Adams, at President Biden himself, at this administration, at you oftentimes, because he wants to move some of those migrants upstate. How do you describe the depth of the crisis in New York and in other places across the country?
Well, it's not being distributed fairly. We should have a decompression border either in Mexico or right across the border, where decisions are based on where there's capacity, where there's space. There are many cities, many states that are not housing any of these migrants. But because New York City has had this pull, this 40-year-old right to shelter, people have come to New York City. And that's another area the mayor and I need to look at this together. And we are looking at it and trying to figure out a way that we can say, this was intended to help homeless people stay off the streets, help families, but it was never intended to be an unlimited universal right and obligation to shelter the entire world. And that's the way it's been interpreted. So once that gets fixed, as well as this opportunity to get the Venezuelans to work, it should take a lot of pressure off, but we really need to stop the incoming. We're still seeing about 3,000 a week. That's absolutely unsustainable. We're working so hard, spending millions of dollars, state dollars, to build shelters to house 3,000 here, 2,000 here, 1,000 here. It's still not enough. So the word has to get out that New York has always been that place of welcoming immigrants. All of us came from somewhere, our parents did, grandparents, but there is a limit to who we can house at this time, and we need the rest of the country to step up. But most importantly, it starts at the border with enforcement, and it also has to start in Washington with common sense immigration reform, which I know we're capable of, because as a young attorney for Senator Moynihan back in 1986, I worked on the last major immigration reform, and it was a bipartisan compromise. And that's the last time we really saw statesmanship in Washington, and that's what I'm calling for now.
Governor Donnie Deutsch, nice to talk to you. We were talking in the earlier hour that the real hot button issue that the Democrats are going to face, that Biden's going to face, and you're going to face when you come up for re-election, is this migrant issue. And it is at a crisis point, as Willie said. And it does not feel like anything is getting done. It feels like it's getting worse. So what are you going to do, you specifically as the governor of the state, to help this problem? Because this is something that is going to really, really affect the Democrats. I feel something palpable in New York. I feel fear. I've never felt it before. I hear it from everybody. What are you going to do?
Well, I feel the same thing. I see it and hear it. I was on the subways just 2 days ago. People are talking about this. But there is an answer to this. As I mentioned, it's twofold. One is more enforcement at the border, because people are coming here illegally, and even just saying they're here seeking asylum without any real basis for that, it'll take 5 to 7 years to determine whether or not someone is here legally through asylum. And at that point, they have to go back if they're denied. So it's a system that's broken there. But also in Washington, we need help with comprehensive immigration reform. The Republicans have to stop playing political games with this. They have to get back to work and do the right thing. But what I can do as the state is continue to support the city. We have allocated $1.7 billion this year. And we're also using that to track the individuals who've arrived, know who they are, try to help them go elsewhere if they can, try to get the Venezuelans into the jobs if they're eligible. So I've stood up an entire whole of government approach to start really managing this and saying, there's jobs in this community, employers want them here, let's pair up the skills, and that's what we're working on right now. So I agree with you. I think this is a political vulnerability, but it doesn't have to be. Democrats have answers, but as long as Republicans see that they can make gains with this, that they can score more points with this, then they're not willing to come to the table and actually do what Americans want, which is two parties working together to solve problems. And that shouldn't be such a radical concept. And so that's what we're facing now, is this gridlock that is driven by the Republicans, who are enjoying this spectacle, who have no intention of helping solve it. So this lies on their feet as well.
Governor, as you know better than most, there are several elements of the migrant issue affecting New York State and New York's communities, as well as other states and other small communities. But one of the elements that could trigger really lasting damage and feelings, lingering feelings among the people that it affects, is the migrants come with children. Children have to attend school. They are put into school systems and sometimes sit in classrooms that are already overcrowded, and they take their problems home to their parents, telling about overcrowded classes and not getting enough attention from teachers. What, if anything, can be done about that very real, live issue?
I will tell you right now, the children who have arrived and have been embraced by the New York City public school system, and I credit the teachers, the administrators, the Adams administration for making this work, and also the teachers union. Michael Mulgrew has stepped up and said, these are our children, and these children are literally traumatized. What they have been through, what they have seen on this journey is nothing that a child should ever have to experience. I'm a mother, this is personal to me. So I commend the school districts who have embraced them, and we have some upstate as well. In Albany and in upstate New York, they've been welcomed. And so it is a challenge for our system. And that's why the volume has to slow down and eventually cease. We can handle what we have now, but if it continues at the rate it is going, then there's not going to be a thoughtful answer to this, because we will have the overcrowding. It'll affect the quality of education for everyone. So that's also, as you mentioned, part of the collateral damage of a country that does not have immigration policies that are actually functioning. And the only way they can change is by Congress. And unfortunately, Republicans control the House, and they refuse to do anything. So that's the direct line from the failure in Washington to get this done and what is happening to these innocent children right now being taken care of by really dedicated teachers in New York City.
Democratic Governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, thank you.